What is up, people? It is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. And for this review, Duncan and I've been checking out a new album from Scottish.
Ho-ho!
Hello there. Technical death metal band Man Must Die. The band's new album, The Pain Behind It All, will be released on February 17th on Distortion Music Group. Okay, so I feel right at home with this one. Right. No surnames we can't pronounce. We're from Scotland. It's all good. We're all good, and they'll probably understand most of this review.
I mean, we hope. You never know.
Yeah.
What I've found is that regardless how well I think I can speak at times, there are still people out there, even from my own country and within my own family, that are like, Huh?
Oh, true. Okay, so formed in 2002, this will be Man Must Die's fifth full-length album, which follows up their last EP, Gagging Order. But technically, this is their first album since 2013.
Mm-hmm.
The lineup of the band has changed a bit since that last album, although the main songwriters of Alan and Joe still remain the same. They now have James Wright on bass, who was also in Madman is Absolute.
Yep.
Tony Corio on drums, and a second guitarist in Mike Allen. That lineup was on the 2019 EP, which was very good. But a full-length album is really where you get to hear a band lay their cards on the table, Duncan.
Yep.
See what they have to offer, you know.
Flex, Dave, flex.
Flexing. Now we're not new to Man Must Die.
No strangers, you would say, Dave.
Not at all.
No.
We have been following these guys pretty much since the beginning, to be honest.
Yeah.
We our own band played a few shows with Man Must Die back in the day, back in the early days.
In the day,
So we've seen the kind of evolvement and the changes this band have gone through. And personally, I think their albums do generally sound stronger every time. Mm-hmm. As much as like the old stuff, like the Start Killing and the Human Condition, have some there's some real fan favourites on those albums. I think for me, it was probably No Tolerance for Imperfection. That felt like a kind of real step up for me, and I really kind of was like, all right, okay, this is serious shit now. Kill It, Skin It, Wear It is like one of my favourite Man Must Die tracks, and it's an absolute statement of a track as well. And then Peace Was Never an Option felt like they'd really kind of started to expand their sound, trying some new ideas, more melody, but without kind of diminishing the Man Must Die ferocity. So the new album, The Pain Behind It All, again, feels like another move forward for Man Must Die. Again, showing that Man Must Die just kind of get better over time. I re-listened to Peace Was Never an Option, and I had to listen to their most recent EP again as well. And between the last album and this one, you can hear there's a clear jump between the two. But even between the EP and this new album, even though they are most alike in the terms of the sound and the style of Man Must Die, there's still little tweaks they've made since that EP, which was cool to hear. They're still kind of evolving this far into their career. For folks that missed the EP, you'll notice that kind of refinement of their sound straight away on this release. Patterns of Chaos is exactly what you'd want from a Man Must Die opener. It comes straight out of the gate, all guns blazing, tight, synced up guitars and drums, scorching vocals, punchy production, and a very, very precise sounding version of Man Must Die. Mm-hmm. And that tightness is something that they have achieved over the last few albums, but here they sound probably the most kind of cohesive they've ever sounded. Nothing feels untidy or out of place. You can tell they've picked one of the most face-splitting tracks to open the album, and it absolutely delivers. The riffs are technical, but there's a little bit of melody infused through them. You've got an absolutely cracking solo, and the drums are loaded with kind of groovy kind of kick drum patterns, and blasts are fairly relentless for the most part, and vocally it's utterly scathing, as you'd expect. Joe sounds as pissed off as it gets. It's fairly conventional in structure, but there's a few kind of additional parts in between the usual kind of verse chorus formula that kind of keep you hooked in. And then in true Man Must Die fashion, the track ends in a very satisfying way. Very groovy, quite jagged, kind of off kilter sounding riff to end the track. So yeah, after the first track, I was like, okay, I am in. And it perfectly, that sets up the next track, The Pain Behind It All, which when that kicked in, I was like, oh, right, like, wasn't expecting this. It kind of goes into almost like a very kind of like Meshuggah kind of rhythm on that track. It's not overly technical, but it's got a real kind of cool feel to it. And I like the fact that they didn't just like give us another like straight up blast fest, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Almost like they're like kind of teasing you, like, we'll just make them wait a little bit. They give you something a little bit more restrained, but it's a really cool track in its own right. Vocally was where I was like, this is really cool. They've got some really nice layered kind of melody. It's quite gloomy sounding. There's some kind of keys in the background that's adding a bit of darkness, a lot of lead work, but they don't really build up the intensity too much on the track. It stays fairly steady. But that then changes when they let rip on both tracks in The Hour Before Your Death, and then track 5, Click Hate. And what I kind of really dug about both of those tracks is you get the kind of customary Man Must Die traits, but they've also thrown in a really like a cool couple of elements. In The Hour Before Your Death has some really interesting kind of guitar work. The melodic riffs and the lead work are slotted in perfectly, and it gives the track this more kind of uplifting feeling, but it also has this dose of a kind of old school hardcore thrown in as well. And it works great. Like, they transition seamlessly, and on In The Hour Before Your Death, it perfectly sets up that kind of killer ending, which is just kind of bludgeoning. And Click Hate, it had some moments where it was kind of like reminding me of that, like almost kind of old Sepultura or kind of nail bomb kind of type hardcore, but what it also has is a hook. And this is something that Man Must Die have gotten really good at, kind of homing in on a particular lyric and making it really stand out and stick in your head. And Click Hate is another really good example of that. I'm like, when I was listening, I was like, this is going to get crowds going absolutely insane. Like, it's got a very like intense, like almost like circle pit type vibe to it. But then there's moments where they just slow it right down and just get, just let the riff really like do its thing. I loved the intensity on Bring Me the Head of the King. I thought it was awesome.
Dude, the speed of the bass drums on that track are like, it's almost at the point where you can differentiate the beats between them, but it is so fucking fast, it's scary.
Ridiculous. Like, the blasts are just punishing. Again, it's got a little streak of hardcore, and the clean vocals are a really cool inclusion on the track. Very kind of anthemic, a little bit kind of like Cattle Decap, but not as like high pitched as Travis Ryan. The solo on the track is fucking awesome. Like, I'm a drummer. I'm not like a huge solo guy, but epic solo on it. And again, it kind of leads into another like big fuck off breakdown at the end of the track. It's an absolute barn burner. And actually the last scream that Joe does before the breakdown, the last line is Bring Me the Head of the King, and on that last word there's like a kind of like glitch type effect on that last track. It was really cool, and it kind of transitions into the breakdown. I thought it was really good. It didn't feel like kind of glued on the breakdown. It worked really well. Most of these tracks are about kind of 4 or 5 minutes, but there's a couple of occasions where they delve into something a bit longer form, clocking in over 6 minutes on Enabler and What Is My Will. But actually both tracks have a bit of a kind of build up or an intro which lasts about a minute, so the tracks, they don't really feel their length once they kick in. My favourite of the two was What Is My Will.
It's really good.
Really cool contrast, lots of light and shade, a lot of nice melodic guitar work scattered through the track, which it felt like they were almost leaning into a melodic black metal at times. Like, they don't push it too much. It doesn't sound like out of place. It feels very well controlled and balanced. They balance it out with a lot of kind of heavy stuff around about it. That track also has one of the best riffs on the album for me. Oh, there is a big, filthy, discordant groove. when it kicked in, I was like, it reminded me of like the slower parts of like the Red Chord, or there's a band from like way back in the early 2000s called Killing Theory. Reminded me a little bit of that, very discordant, just really slowed down, hugely dissonant, and it comes in the middle of the track as well, which was kind of less predictable, which I really liked. The last track, Who Goes There /IFF, again, it leans again into that kind of old school kind of hardcore, but it's blended with like fast blasts and really kind of techie death metal riffs. It reminded me a little bit of like early Man Must Die. There's a little bit of God Player in there as well. I was like, oh, that's a wee bit God Player, but loads of energy. Once again, it's got a lyric that crowds will have chanting back. In this case, it's IFF. It's identify friend or foe. Even I was shouting it, like, and I was sitting at home in my fucking dining room with my work laptop, you know what I mean? And I was shouting away at the end of the track. It feels like it kind of goes out in a really high note as well. So like once it's finished, you're like, that was really good. I might just play that album again. It just gives you that like, let's do that once more. The actual musicianship is spot on this album. I think these guys sound super tight on the new album. Drumming is a highlight for me, obviously. I think Tony's drumming is just ridiculous. Like, it's super tight, really crisp playing. I love the little intricate bass work, bass drum patterns and stuff. Really cool. Production could be one of the best they've had to date, in my opinion. I think the EP, the last EP they done, was a little bit inconsistent drum wise. I don't know if it was recorded in different places or at different times. But this album has a mix that feels way more kind of leveled. There's nothing overpowering. Guitars are thick and crunchy. The bass has its own kind of space in the mix, and the drum sounds absolutely perfect. I feel like this is their most kind of balanced album. I think Mike Allen, the guitarist, recorded the last release, so I'm assuming it was maybe him that did this one too. But hats off to whoever it was that was behind it, because it sounds killer. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Like, I'd heard the single, or the first single going in, so I was like, all right, my interest was piqued, but really, really happy with the end result. I think they've got a cracking album. What about yourself? What do you think?
So very much like yourself, I feel like Man Must Die has been pretty much in my musical interest now for, well, over 20 years. They've been here, which fucking is weird to say, but I remember having demos, like demo CDs of these guys way back, and you hear them now, and it's mind blowing. But you are right, there are elements on here that hark back to that in a really kind of satisfying way. The thing that I love about the last song is, like, there's a lot of bands nowadays, and I don't mind it, that use that last track as a way to like try something different, or like that. What like the 10th track, the closing track, is maybe the most conventional Man Must Die song on the entire release. It really does close out with a statement of this is who we fucking are, and it really works. There was a point in their kind of their escalation, or their build up, where it did get to a point where you knew what you were going to get from them. You knew you were in a safe pair of hands when Man Must Die, and then they've went away. And that great saying about, how can I miss you if you won't go away? They've been away for a while and they've come back. And what is great about listening to them in 2023 is that I actually think this is probably the best version they've ever been, primarily because the vocals are the best they've ever been. I think his dexterity is more his confidence to be able to mix in the kind of hardcore elements, those like melodic stuff, the spoken word stuff that he does as well, which is really fucking good. He can nail it as well without, like, because like if you hear him speak, he does have an accent. On these CDs, he doesn't have an accent. But it really works, and it adds weight to it. And then his kind of death metal tone, which is fucking jaw-droppingly good, and doesn't ever feel like it's too much of a stretch for him. He's always just got that in the back pocket. It sits really well above it. Songwriting wise, there's so much to enjoy here. The drumming is insane, which is always, like, regardless, even if it was big, what's his face, Thingy Holland, they used to do the drums for them. Yeah, Big Matt. Matt's drumming was always insane. But that's never, like, they've changed drummer, but that hasn't lessened at all. It's still, like, without, like, an inch of anything remotely wrong, fucking tighter than anything can be. It's so tight that it's almost snapping. And it works perfect. There's plenty of switches, plenty of changes. Drums are really, really cool. And when they transition to the fills, the guitar work is great. It sometimes does go for, like you say, a kind of more stripped back, kind of ferocious, kind of hardcore thing. It will happily kick out like some savage blasting. The solos are fucking great on this one as well. But then what I loved about it as well is there are sections in here, you were talking about that melodic black metal thing. Yeah. There are bits that start to feel more anthemic and like bigger in structure, and contrast it against some of the tracks where they didn't do it on the whole album, which is what I love. It's like those longer tracks you mentioned with those like longer intros, whether it's Enabler or War Is My Will, have those, they're longer songs but they're grander songs, so that kind of works. I want that. I want it to build up and pay off. It's not just a case of we'll just add an extra interlude in here and 5 choruses at the end. It's not like that. It's there for purpose, and it gives it a sense of something bigger, something grand. But then the album happily switches back into, no, this is what we do, this is our bread and butter. You also mentioned the glitch vocal technique thing, which I fucking love. And it really, really works. They don't revisit it because they don't need to revisit it, which is fucking great. Like, there's other bands that use gimmicks too much because it becomes part of the sound. They don't need to do that. Lyrically, I think this is fucking awesome. I think he really reaches for some savage places, and he's always been a great lyricist. I've always loved these vocals, but I think it works incredibly well here. And what you're getting is a kind of new version of the band that still weirdly feels, and because the chief songwriters are still there, still feels like the band we kind of grew up listening to. And what stress, we're all about the same age as well, so when I say grew up listening to, it's not that we were kids. Like when we were on the music scene, these guys were already starting their to ascend to those levels. They still have all that in the it still has all that savagery in its sound, but they're a band that have clearly just continued to adapt, grow, and level up. Production is fucking great as well. It sounds like there are certain parts of this that sound fucking massive, like absolutely colossal, and not at the detriment of the bits where the band just want to go back to doing like just brutal savagery, which they have. It's a real joy to come back and listen to these guys. I didn't hear the previous EP. I think I missed that. But listening to this, I think it's great to have them back. And there's almost a part of me that feels like that time away has probably done them well, because they've not missed a beat at all. And I say time away, I'm sure they've still been gigging and stuff, but in terms of release, they've not missed a beat at all. And if anything, this is probably the best version of the band today. It's an incredible album. Once again, another Scottish band that have been on the go for years, showing why if you're good at something, you'll have a career out of it. Like they really are. And we can speak having played with them live, but having also seen them live. They pull it off live. Like, and I'm chuffed, man. I'm really, really chuffed. It's like one of those ones where you kind of always get that fear of like that, and then I sat down and listened to it, spun it a good few times, enjoyed every single listen to it. It's really, really great, and it's good to see them back. And hopefully we don't have to wait fucking the best part of a decade for another album. Hopefully they get out, they tour, they get all the success they need for this one, and get back to doing what they're really, really good at, which is crafting fucking savage songs. So I really enjoyed it.
Okay, so ratings for the new Man Must Die album. I was kind of like yourself. I was kind of like, so are they still going to be relevant? Are they still have they still got ideas? At 5 albums in, turns out they've still got plenty left in the tank. Like this album, it's weird. It's got like a nostalgia to it. Like you've got the kind of old school Man Must Die, but it's also got a fresh side as well, and it's forged with some really kind of new ideas and some great songwriting. I thought this was brilliant. Like I think this was a really, really strong album. Man must not die, Duncan. Man must live. Man must keep making albums. Is what they must do.
You know, any credibility we had with him with this review has now been shot with that shite joke. Your part of it is pish.
Let me bring some of that back. It's a 4.5 from me. What are you thinking?
I'm the same.
Nice.
Genuinely, yeah. Like, I was so fucking happy listening to this. Yeah, I think the beauty of this is I imagine there are a ton of people that are now primed. They don't know it yet because they've maybe never heard Man Must Die before, that are primed to fall in love and find a new favourite band. I think they've got I think they're coming back right at the right time as well with this album. I think there's a whole sea of people who are going to listen to these guys, see them live, and kind of catch up with what we've known for a while. 4.5.
Nice. So, Man Must Die's new album, The Pain Behind It All, released on February 17th on Distortion Music Group. I'll put some links below to the band and any pre-orders that are available. I'll stick that in there as well. Check them out. If you've never heard of Man Must Die before, now is the time. Have a listen. Let us know what you think. Stick some comments in below. That is the review. Thank you so much for checking it out. Much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.